Okay, so you misuse it and abuse it. Well, take a look at the ridiculous things that have been done in the name of Christianity.
Exactly.
I mean, can't you apply the same thing to your argument? Therefore, but wait, are you saying that Christianity is false or that Christianity is evil? Are you saying evolution is false or evil? I mean, there are two different things, and it's either one is a non-starter. Even if Hitler did everything he did because he was an evolutionary biologist and understood it and wanted to purify the human species, it still would make evolution false.
No, it's a complete fallacy.
Yeah, exactly. And go ahead.
Well, it's kind of like you were saying earlier. It would be like saying cancer is evil, therefore cancer doesn't exist. I mean, it's a ridiculous argument. I mean, it's true. Cancer is evil.
It goes back to a form of the prisoner question, where they studied prisoners, and what actually came out of was they found that like 98% of all convicted felons eat carrots 3, 4, 5 times a week.
Really?
It's not the carrots; it's the fact that they serve prisoners carrots because carrots are cheap. So all the convicted felons in prison eat carrots because they're hungry. Has nothing to do with carrots. But you can make a correlation, but not a causation. And Hitler was more interested in eugenics. Hitler believed eugenics, which did not come from evolution. It did not come from Darwin. It did not come from the theory of Darwin at all.
It predated Darwin by thousands of years. Animal breeding, crop breeding, those were all based on the same principles.
Right. Eugenics itself specifically came from studies from his era and his time frame that you could breed, and it also comes from the old idea that royalty could breed royalty, and only royalty could breed royalty.
And yeah, exactly. And it's a very biblical view of lineages and of genealogy. I mean, and once again, it's like saying that, well, 90% of cancer people diagnosed with lung cancer have a lighter in their pocket at their time of diagnosis.
Right.
It might be something in the plastic. It might be the flint. You know, I mean, you know, but I mean, so but I mean, once again, we're still in fantasy land because Hitler was Christian, more Christian than a lot of the Christians that are out there.
And Hitler actually credited his actions to his Christianity and to his belief in God. I mean, there are a number of times where he said his treatment of the Jews was a result of his belief in God.
Yeah.
I don't believe he ever said, I'm doing this because Darwin knows what he's talking about. In fact, I doubt he even mentioned Darwin by name once.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it's once again, creationist arguments and reality overlap far less than I'm comfortable with.
Well, so, Hitler has come down as the de facto bad guy of all time. I mean, there was actually more deaths due to the same mentality in Darfur than there was in all of World War II. Darfur lost millions of people. We've had situations like this, but Mao, Stalin, and Hitler, they were people who were not very nice. They were out for one thing, and they didn't care who they had to kill, murder, or whatever to get what they wanted. Well, it has nothing to do with religion or anything else. It has to do with them wanting to be in control, and they had a means to do it.
Yeah, exactly. But go ahead.
Well, they're bad guys. So anything that we don't like that they do, or if I'm, Bible Belt Christian and I believe in Christianity and everything else is bad, and someone says, well, Hitler was an atheist, well, automatically that's why it happened. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter who it is. If you are a bigot, the particular race that you don't like, whatever they do that you don't like that they're doing, it's because they're that race. It's just a default mechanism that we use to pick on someone else or something else.
Exactly.
Yeah, and hang on one second. There's a line in his there's a line in Klinghoffer's post that really got me. And it was basically like saying what Hitler did, he bungled Darwinism in order to, what he did was basically like a bungling of Darwinism. So he's not even really saying that Darwinism leads to this. It's saying that a fanatical, interpretation of it will lead to that. Well, fanatical interpretation of anything will lead to bullshit. Fanaticism in general is the problem. It's not that what's being butchered. It is the mindset that butchers it to begin with. I mean, if you want to see ugly, you can't don't bother looking at a face, look at a mind. And take a look at, for example, the Crusades. Oh, let's say it was a bungling of Christianity. Well, the same argument applies. Therefore, is Christianity false? Therefore, should Christianity be eradicated from the world?
But what you don't understand is those weren't real Christians.
Oh, right. Well, find me a real Christian that didn't die on the cross. That's sort of my attitude about it.
Wasn't he?
Huh?
He was actually a Hebrew, wasn't he?
Yeah. I don't know if he was a Jew. He might have been kind of Jewish, but
yeah,
Jewish. Jew.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, I think it's one of those things where that argument has been beaten to death, and there are so many sources out there that if people still believe it, I mean, go do the evidence or go do the searching for yourself. Something a creationist will never tell you to do. Go look up Hitler's views. Go read Mein Kampf. I know that requires effort and the ability to read, which might not be conducive to creationism. But at the same time, I think that if you're really interested in the answer and really interested in, what exactly Hitler's views were, read his own words.
Well, like you were saying earlier, we shouldn't, unless you're specifically prepared and know what you're doing, you shouldn't publicly debate a creationist. Because even the dumbest creationists, you bring them up to the level of evolution, Well,
it's about style. I mean, I could beat virtually, or I could beat a lot of astronomers or computer scientists about things I have no fucking clue about, just because it's about your style and your debates. Do you have the ability to control the audience? Do you have the ability to play with your opponent? Do you have, and a lot of scientists and people who've studied stuff like that simply don't have that. And I don't mean this in a self-flating or an egotistical way, but I mean it in a tactical way. You have to have an adequate self-view of yourself.
Yeah,
you can't go in.
Yeah, the debate's not about the facts. The debate is how you present.
Exactly. You cannot go into it thinking this guy is batshit crazy. The facts are on my side. I know my shit. Therefore I'll win. Many scientists have become victim of that.
Yeah.
The important part, though, is with articles like this, is like you say, we can look the information up, we can hash it. The three of us know most of these answers, and we know what's wrong with them. But a lot of people that will, listen to us and who also listen to Don Exodus don't know the answers. And when you're at work, when you're at the playground with your kids and you're sitting around with the other parents or you're playing...
Watch out for Nephilim Free.
Yeah. Well,
he's crazy.
Especially on the playground. Yeah, and Chuck E. Cheese.
Yes. Well, they bring these things up, and you have to be able to intelligently knock it down quickly. No, you have to say, that's a bunch of horse, and this is why. And then but you can't present it like, well, they're a bunch of dummies. They don't know what they're talking about. You got to be intelligent and quick. So people like us do need to talk about guys like this idiot and David Klinghoffer is smart enough to know he's lying.
Yeah.
I agree.
I don't necessarily know. I think that there's cognitive dissonance. Is he smart? Yes. Is he smart enough to know that he's false? I think that he's got that barrier in their mind. There are scientists who think they can telepathically communicate with their cats. They're perfectly smart people, but they wall off that part of their brain. And I think that when you're dealing with people on the playground and stuff like that, you have to know your audience. Look, I'm being rather harsh and getting in digs on creationists that I sure as hell wouldn't do if I was trying to convince someone who's open-minded. But, I take a look at the platform that we're on. We're on a radio show. We're on a podcast. And if I'm going to be, posting this on my channel and you post it on yours and things like that, the people who are going to be listening to it aren't, listening to 40 minutes of it, aren't the people who are, oh, I'm wishy-washy, I just want evidence. I mean, these are people who want to hear our opinions. And
right.
who don't, you have to entertain them, too. You can't just be completely cold with the science facts. And this is something Thunderfoot and I have belabored about over and over.
Right, but you also have to be able to arm the general population.
Yes, exactly. That's what this is about too.
Yeah,
and that's what makes these things important, and that's why we need to take these questions and these points they try to bring up and take them apart, take them down one at a time, so that everyone that listens to us and that's on our side of the fence knows how to publicly discourse about this.
It's one thing to know that it's bullshit. It's another thing to know why it's bullshit. And then it's yet another thing to be able to know that it's bullshit, why it's bullshit, and how you can convince other people that it's bullshit. And that's what this conversation is about. It's about giving you the arguments and the facts.
Well, in fairness to most scientists who as we mentioned earlier, don't always do a good job of explaining evolution, is most of them are not orators. And unlike most scientists, like most physicists, a physicist doesn't have to go around defending gravity everywhere he goes.
Mm-hmm. And most biologists don't have to go around defending. Go ahead.
No, the point you were making is, like I was saying, I mean, most scientists don't have to advocate on political and religious grounds the results of the research.
Yeah.
Yeah,
especially when it's political. You've got people who don't know anything, controlling or attempting to control reality. And the bottom line is that, look, you're entitled to your own beliefs, you're entitled to your own opinions, but you are not entitled to your own facts. And that's it, plain and simple. You can tell me that you think this, you think that. I can tell you I think this and that, but what matters is the evidence. It doesn't matter. The evidence is far more important. I would much rather have somebody be wrong for the right reasons than someone who's right just by accident. I'd trust the former person any day.
Let's get into a couple, just end this up, let's answer a couple of common arguments against evolution.
Well, you can just go down the list if you want. There's no...
Okay. And
well, you got the short text you emailed us. That'd be a perfect jumping point right there, because these are some of the dumber ones. Like number 5 drives me insane.
Well, let's just go through them one by one. Hang on, let me pull up the email real quick. Okay. Mutations only remove information rather than adding them, which is why Huntington's, which is a gene duplication, doesn't exist. I mean... Right, I mean, it's very easy. There's something called gene duplication. It's not some crazy idea. It's something that's observed every day in labs. There are thousands upon thousands of documented examples of it. In fact, the vast majority of our genome is a result of gene duplication. But it also kind of depends on how you define information. You can define it one of two ways. One, you can say there can be no new traits, right? Let's say there are only green beetles. Well, now there could be a mutation which inhibits the pigmenting or changes the pigment so that it's now green. Mm-hmm. Wow! Now instead of at a population level, well, now instead of beetles being only brown, now they can be green too. So now you have green and brown. That's an increase in information, and that's been observed multiple times. You can also look at it in the genomic level, in the sense of, are you adding new DNA? Are you adding new genes? Well, that's been observed too. Take a look at nylonase, which basically it's what's called it's gene duplication followed by a frame shift mutation. And you can take a look at that on YouTube. I've got a couple of videos on it, or check out the Wikipedia article on it. It's something every biology student learns is what a frame shift mutation is. What happens basically is that you've got genes and you get an extra copy of them just via a replication error. It happens all the time. It's happened in your body 100 times today. But what can happen sometimes is that there can be a frame shift error, which causes all the proteins after that, until you get to what's called a stop codon, to change and become a completely different protein. 99.999% of the time, nothing happens. It yields a non-functional product, and the organism isn't affected, or it's affected negatively. But that 1 out of 100,000 times, and keep in mind this is happening 100 times a day in every organism on the planet, that one time you get something new. And that's what happened with nylonase. Or, nylon wasn't synthesized by humans until, 70 years ago. So bacteria really had no reason to be able to break it down, right? After all, if you're spending, it's broken down by an enzyme. And if these bacteria are producing this enzyme before, when there's no nylon, well, they're going to be at a disadvantage because they're wasting money, producing stuff that doesn't exist yet. I mean, it's like, making solar